Hello and welcome to the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. I'm your host, Jeff Harvie, registered migration agent with Down Under Visa, the premier Australian migration agent in Manila, Philippines, specialising in visas for Australian Filipina couples. We hope you enjoy this podcast and hope it proves useful to you. Please feel free to share this with your partner and with any of your interested friends. Let's get started. Australian partner visa application after sponsorship withdrawal. Okay, your relationship has ended. Now what? What happens to your Australian partner visa application? But please note that if your relationship breaks down, couldn't quite work out which term to use there. If your relationship breaks down, and there is a sponsorship withdrawal, Down Under Visa can't help or represent either of you after that. Now, we can let you know legally what you have to do, but we cannot take sides and we can't specifically help either one of you beyond the very basics. Now, usually it's the sponsor who contacts us when a relationship breaks down and says, so what do I do now? Now, and then we explain what they have to do, which, if you've been reading other blog articles, then you will know. It means that you have to withdraw your sponsorship officially. Now, you must do it. There's no choice there. Now, the other question the sponsors, but usually the men, ask is, so what will happen next? So after the partner visa sponsorship withdrawal, yes, that's correct terminology. You don't cancel her visa. You don't send her packing or toss her out of Australia. What you do is you withdraw your sponsorship of her visa application, and the department will take it from there. And if there are no extenuating circumstances, yes, in time, most likely that visa will be cancelled and she will need to leave most of the time. And once you do this, we can't help either of you. Now, why? Well, it's because we acted for both of you. Our contract was with the sponsor and the applicant. And so what that means is we have a conflict of interest if we try to take one of your sides against the other. So I will back off at that point. If you need further advice, I can refer you on to a registered migration agent lawyer who is very good in this area, but we can't. It's not it's not one of those moments that we enjoy particularly because, obviously we try our best to help you to get together, and then when things go wrong, it's quite sad. We get to know you over the process, and then, we hear everything's gone belly up, so it's not what we like to see, but, it's natural, unfortunately. A certain percentage of relationships are always going to break down, and it's always emotional, and yes, you invariably will get, sponsor will say, that she was awful, and, if we get her side, she'll go, I don't know what he's talking about because he was the awful one. Not very pleasant, but anyway, again, we just simply can't represent either of you when that sort of thing happens. But the issue for the department and for those partner visa applicants who wish to continue to remain in Australia is whether there are any exceptional circumstances which would allow them to grant the visa despite their no longer being a sponsor. So, yes, those exceptions. If a sponsor dies, now we've had some sad cases where this has happened. We've also had it happen before the application has been lodged, and if it happens before the application gets lodged, there's absolutely nothing that we can do about that. There's no sponsor at the beginning of an application, and that means that any application we lodge will be invalid. So even if we've got everything absolutely prepared and we're ready to hit the button, then it doesn't amount to anything, unfortunately, because every partner visa application requires that there be a sponsor. No sponsor, well, no application. However, if the application was already lodged, yes, there is a good chance we can help to get the visa application granted, and there's no conflict of interest there, obviously, so we can most certainly help. Now, we had one recently, and tragic accident, a mum and kids are now in Australia. Well, they were in Australia at the time. They're still in Australia, and they are permanent residents now, which is great. So we can help if we can show the department that the relationship would have continued had the sponsor not died, and the applicant has developed substantial ties within Australia. In other words, that's having friends, possibly having a job, possibly owning property, and having kids, close family ties, that type of thing. Clearly it's the same as when they're finalising any permanent partner visa application. They need to see that the relationship continued. If you've got nothing to show, and it looks as though the two of you have just been existing together, well, then it's not going to go anywhere, unfortunately. So of course they will still take the rest of the application into account. If the application was likely to be refused had the sponsor not died, well, then they will still refuse it. So, we're talking valid applications here where there are genuine relationships existing. Now, if the relationship ends and there is a sponsorship withdrawal, which is the main thing we're talking about here. So if the sponsor withdraws sponsorship of the visa applicant in a partner visa application, is there any way she can remain in Australia and avoid visa cancellation? Okay, there is a family violence provision, also known as domestic violence, but the department call it family violence for some reason. Now, it's a fairly unpleasant topic, and we would rather avoid it. However, it happens, and the Australian government has a distaste for the idea of tossing an applicant out of Australia because they suffered abuse, known as relevant family violence. Now note, this is the definition of what that means. Okay, conduct, whether actual or threatened, towards the alleged victim or a member of the family unit of the alleged victim, or oddly enough, a member of the family unit of the alleged perpetrator, or the property of the alleged victim, or the property of a member of the family unit of the alleged victim, or property of a member of the family unit of the alleged perpetrator. In other words, we're talking, somebody going nuts basically, and lashing out in a violent manner, and whether he's taking that out on people or property, it's still violence. So any of those things that causes the alleged victim to reasonably fear for or be reasonably apprehensive about his or her own well-being or safety. So, an actual fear of harm, in other words, if he's smashing furniture or something and you had a reasonable fear that you could be next. Well, that's what they're talking about there. So, in other words, it's not about arguments or disagreements, it's about threats to well-being or safety towards the applicant or family members or property of the visa applicant. So, it's not, we disagreed on something, or, he upset me because he was looking at porn on the net, or he cheated on me, or anything like that. We are talking, about, threats to well-being or safety. So as I said, Australia takes a dim view of domestic violence, and no one has to tolerate it. No victim, female or male, yes, there are male victims too, there's far more male victims than will generally come forward with any sort of domestic violence. It certainly happens. No one has to tolerate being in an unsafe situation from an Australian sponsor who gets to hold the fear of deportation over their heads. And I hope that any genuine victim who reads this contacts the police immediately, and this is the first port of call. Just note, those of you who attended the CFO in Manila before you left, this is specifically for offshore applicants where you can't leave without doing that, and as you would be aware, onshore applicants, if you come back, you then still have you come back here after the visa's granted, you still need to attend. But the main point about those seminars is to explain to you what happens if you are under any threat of violence, what you can do, and to explain to you that no, if somebody says, I'm going to keep beating you up, or I'm going to keep raping you, or whatever it happens to be, and you better behave, otherwise I'll take your passport off you, or I'll have you deported, or I'll have you thrown into a detention centre or something. Well, they can't do that sort of thing. You go to the police, they're not going. It's not like, thing I discovered in the Philippines years ago. You'd say, you should go to the police, and people would go, no, not the police, because they were scared of what would happen there, because they didn't trust them. That's not the case in Australia. You go to the police if you're in any sort of danger, and they will take care of you, so don't forget that. So, genuine family violence. Okay, there is a perceived fear out there about ladies trying to play the system and making false claims of family violence, which will ensure they get to remain in Australia as permanent residents, and also may get their husband into trouble. So what if she tells the police you threatened to kill her and they believe her? Now, does she get a visa, and could you be locked up? Could you get into trouble over that? Look, again, I just want to make a clear disclaimer here. I'm not an expert in this area. I unfortunately haven't seen too many family violence cases, and those that I do see I pass on to real experts, and I would implore you to seek expert advice before acting. I'm just giving general directions here. I'm not speaking as an experienced expert. I'm offshore, I'm in Manila. These things happen onshore. There's nothing I can do about it anyway, other than to refer you on if something happens. But yeah, back to the making up stories. Now, I suppose from observation I could say that yes, this sort of thing happens, and there are sneaky and scheming people out there. Sometimes, it happens within families, and I heard this from a senior case officer once, that sometimes they will discover that, that mum and several of her daughters or sisters have come to Australia, done the same thing. They've arrived, they've accused the man of doing something terrible, and the next one arrives, they do the same thing, and they see a bit of a pattern there. But there are people who will try this. Look, when a relationship breaks down, look, my experience of, we all know people where relationships break down. There are never any bad guys, and both the sponsor and the applicant. This is the same as if your neighbour has a marriage breakdown. Whatever, you speak to him, you speak to her. It's the same story. They're both absolutely innocent, and innocent as the freshly fallen snow in their explanations. However, the other party, in contrast, is always the devil incarnate. The other party is the worst human being on the planet, and the fault is entirely theirs. So, obviously somebody is always lying. I hate getting into these discussions because, one of them will email me and they'll tell me, she did this, she did that, and she, threw knives at me and kicked the dog and did every dreadful thing in the world. And then we get from her, she sounds like Mother Teresa. Absolute saint of a woman, and I love him so much. He does these awful things, but I just tolerate him because I love him so much. I hear that sort of codswallop, and it's kind of obvious that there's going to be more to it than that, and it takes two to tango. And of course you're going to get completely innocent parties and completely awful people, but in most cases there's a bit of toing and froing there, and So you never quite get the whole story. So, yeah, honestly, I'm not that unhappy that I can't get involved any further because, yeah, if you were so perfect, well, then you wouldn't be coming to me with a problem and trying to work out who's trying to manipulate a situation by making false or exaggerated accusations, or who's trying to cover up their own unpleasant behaviour. Well, it's not in my skill set. And, yeah, I'd rather stick with making visas happen than trying to wreak revenge on somebody. But look, my understanding, before I wrote this, I had extensive discussions with colleagues who do specialise in this area. And yes, they've told me, yes, there are unsubstantiated wild stories with no evidence to back them up, but that they almost never get the desired results. Yes, a manipulative applicant can convince a social worker to write a report stating violence that had never happened, but if there is no backup evidence, which would exist if there was a real case, then it won't convince the department. Now, there is a detailed process and an evidence trail to go through, which your new registered migration agent who takes over the case from us, they can guide you with that. And yes, they also need to believe that the relationship was otherwise genuine and that you have an otherwise strong case leading up to the alleged violence occurring. If your application was otherwise not likely to be successful, then the existence of family violence won't change that. So if it's a last-ditch attempt to try to stay in Australia, well, even if it happened, it ain't going to work if there isn't evidence of a genuine relationship there. So, be aware of that. As for other legal issues surrounding relationship breakups, look, please see a lawyer. Not us, not somebody on Facebook, not Auntie Jing Jing. Get some reliable guidance rather than talking to your friends. Watch out for experts and watch out for troublemakers, because they are always out there. If about the worst is the don't go hanging around women who've just broken up from relationships, because they tend to be a bit bitter and twisted, and they can steer you down the wrong path. So yes, see the experts, and all the very, 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 very best of luck with that. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of the Down Under Visa Philippines to Australia podcast series. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you found this useful. Australian visas from the Philippines are not easy, and the outcome matters, as you well know. Please feel free to contact us anytime if you need some further help. And we look forward to talking to you again next time. Bye-bye.